Well, hi everybody, and welcome to episode 72 of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A, where your questions and votes and chats and comments really do drive everything that we do. Please do introduce yourself in the LinkedIn or the YouTube chat. I can see we've got lots of folks already joined online, and that would be really great. So let us know your name, please, and which city and what country in the world that you're joining us from, because we really do have a global audience now for Level Up. We love to hear from you and, of course, to get everybody involved. In the chat, we'll also post in a few minutes a link for you to vote up the questions that you would most like answered, and, of course, to add your own. I think Shanice and Hayley are both online now, and they're looking forward to hearing from you. We live stream on Mondays, of course, at 8 and Fridays at 2 p.m. UK time to both YouTube and LinkedIn. Now, today, we're going to be talking about how to build a career in the project management office. Now, these PMOs, as they're known, are intrinsically at the center of how organizations innovate, helping to deliver real projects and meaningful change. Establishing a PMO with clear roles and responsibilities has been a key enabler for many organizations to improve their overall competency, capability, manage risk, and improve how they deliver complex projects over the years. So it's a fantastic area to work in and a brilliant set of career choices for people. We've got a lovely panel to work with you today. So let's jump straight in and meet them all. Rachel Jenkins is an experienced project program and PMO professional, and she's been working in healthcare and also in education. Rachel specializes in complex integration and transformational delivery, and she's currently working in a PMO role and brings her first-hand experience to the panel today. So welcome to Level Up, Rachel.
Thank you, Nick. Hi, everybody. I'm here in the UK in Nottingham this morning. It's very early here, lots of coffee going on. I'm looking forward to being part of the show. Thank you.
All right, lovely. Thank you very much. Suchitra, Rautela, Joshi is a hands-on professional in project program and portfolio management. Suchitra shares a background in management consulting and works as an independent consultant and project management advisor for the United Nations Office of Project Services. So really lovely to have you on the show, and welcome, Suchitra.
Thank you very much, Nick. It's a pleasure to be here. I myself started working on PMOs almost 20 years back when it was not such a formalized, sector in itself. And I'm so happy to be able to talk to you all and everybody else who are joining us from all over the world. Welcome, and thank you for having me.
Okay, no problem at all. Thank you so much. Eileen Roden next. Eileen is really, I think, one of the driving forces behind helping everybody improve their professionalism around project management offices and building out the competency framework that goes alongside that. She is, of course, the co-founder of the House of PMO and has co-authored the PMO Competency Framework. Eileen is an active networker. She holds a fellowship of the Association of Project Management here in the UK and a regular speaker at conferences. So welcome back to the panel, Eileen. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick. Lovely to be on the panel again. So I'm sitting here in what hopes to be a sunny Solihull in the UK later on today. And again, as you said, just looking forward to talking about PMO, which is my daily job.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Ashish Garg is a general manager over at HCL Technologies, where he has led global implementations, I think it's fair to say, of software as a service solutions in complex regulated environments. Ashish is currently helping organizations achieve process excellence. So great to see you again, Ashish. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Nick. And, I'm happy to be here again with the entire team. Looking forward to, understand and help people make a career in the project management space. And I'm from India, dialing in from Noida.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us from Noida. Also heading further east and further south than Noida in India is Paul Sutton. He's a senior trainer, of course, and lead consultant over at Project Results in New Zealand, a regular speaker for PMI in New Zealand. Paul has built his career across a wide range of industries and modalities and is a key contributor to Level Up. So welcome back, Paul.
Thank you, Nick, and thanks for the great introduction. It's great to be back here again. And coming from Wellington, New Zealand, and great that we've got British summertime, so it's not so late for me. Fantastic. I established my first PMO, probably learning as I went about 23 years ago, and sort of been involved ever since and looked around between that training and consulting as a project and program manager as well. So always good to change hats.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So we have somebody else from New Zealand, which is great. So welcome to you. If you joined us from Christchurch, we've got folks from Nigeria. We've got people from Manchester in the UK, South Wales. Lovely to see you, Shanice from South Wales, and Monica from Poland. Welcome back, Monica. I think you've joined us previously on another Level Up event. Completing our panel today is another Suchitra, of course, Suchitra Jacobs. She is over in Bangalore in India. So welcome, Suchitra. How are you today?
Hi, everyone, and hi, Nick. I'm doing well, thank you. Looking forward to asking all the questions.
All right. Okay, perfect. So thank you very much indeed. And on that note, why don't we jump straight in and we'll take our first question to the panel.
Our first question is from Matt. How is a PMO manager different to a project manager?
Okay, so how is a PMO manager different to a project manager? Suchitra, why don't you start us off, please?
Well, first of all, we all know that project manager focuses on a specific project, whereas PMOs focus on a wide range of projects, depending on the size of your portfolio, whether it is for one function or department or an organization by PMO. Project manager's role is temporary because the project will ultimately end. A PMO role is more like a business head. It's an ongoing role. Yeah, so it's more about running the operations of the PMO rather than a specific project, because there will always be projects in the portfolio. And I'll let some other speakers add on that.
Right, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Paul. We'll come to you in a moment. One of the things I was kind of thinking, everybody, was that PMO managers are there at the beginning, the middle, and the end. All right, not all project managers are around to the end. I don't know if that's too cheeky to say that, Paul, or not, but your thoughts, please.
Well, yes, they are, and they do sit across the beginning, the middle, and the end, but also they are more about supporting the project manager, looking at the processes, looking at the overall flow, looking at the reporting, providing the tools, ensuring that things are kind of consistent, everyone's speaking the same language. So it is a different focus from a project manager, but you do need to know stuff. Yeah. So, that will probably come in with the people that, say, how do I get there? Well, some prior skills are excellent.
Okay, thank you. Eileen, then Ashish.
So the project manager is there to deliver the project, and the role of the PMO manager is to create the right environment by which the project manager can actually kind of deliver that project. And a friend of mine who managed PMO had a great strapline for his PMO as the PMO manager. He said, "We're there to help the projects deliver with less energy and less adrenaline." So your PMO should actually make it easier for you to be able to deliver your project by providing you with the right resources, the right tools, the right governance structure that's going to work for your project. And so as a PMO manager, we often kind of do that, not just for one project, but as Suchitra said, we may do that for multiple projects. We may do it for multiple programs.
Okay, thank you very much, Eileen. Ashish, your thoughts?
I think a PMO is more of the guiding force for the project manager, right? So he or she would be the enabler who would kind of drive through the entire duration of the project, like you said, beginning, middle and end. So they are really the force behind all the project managers who are working on different projects, and they kind of work to define the processes and ensure that whatever the project manager is doing is bound within the right framework and follows the right path to the success of the project.
Right, thank you so much, panel, and a great question to get us going there and really thinking about, these roles and responsibility and getting some clarity around them. Very good. Suchitra, let's take our next question, please.
Your question from Jessica. What are some of the different roles within a project management office?
Okay, so who would like to start us off on this? Eileen.
So I think there's two areas you can look at this. One is about kind of the different levels of seniority, but there are also some very kind of specific roles you can do within the PMO. So typically when we're talking from a PMO, we'd talk about 4 roles: an administrator, kind of quite a junior role, an analyst, which is quite a broad role from providing support through to guidance, a PMO manager, and we're now seeing kind of multiple PMO directors across the industry. So that's kind of the levels of roles that are out there. But in terms of actual roles that you do within the PMO, can be anything from being quite a generalist. So basically picking up anything from kind of organizing the meetings to running the reporting to actually kind of providing an overview of the portfolio to senior execs and kind of everything in between, to actually specializing in some roles like planning or risk management or benefits management. So there's a range of things that you can do in the PMO, a great variety.
Okay, thank you so much. Suchitra and then Rachel.
Well, as Eileen mentioned, there are a wide variety of roles within a PMO, but largely what determines the roles requirement within a PMO is the services that the PMO is providing to the businesses and the projects. So in terms of strategic services, or is it delivery services, is it center of excellence, is it training, is it consulting, is it advisory, is it more of planning assistance, project startup support, or closure support, or maybe strategic planning support, and so on and so forth. So depending on what services are being provided, the seniority level and the skill level varies. So you might need to look at what services your PMO is providing and accordingly aim for those depending on the skill sets or the competency the roles require.
Okay, thank you so much. And Rachel, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, so we've kind of got a slightly different approach where I am in the NHS, and I think that's to do with the fact of the size of the PMO that we're actually able to recruit and have. So one of the things that we're doing is we're thinking about the skills that are needed. So, for example, as Eileen mentioned, risks, benefits, things like that. But what we're also trying to do is map where in the organisation we have people who are expert at that in their normal roles, so that we don't have to have them permanently in the PMO, but we kind of call on them and bring them in, as we need them to come and help and support us. That was just
It's a really
I wanted to add on to that.
Yeah, it's a really good point, isn't it? Because in order to be able to deliver any project, program, or even a portfolio of activity, everybody needs to come together and work in a particular way. And where those skills exist in different functional areas, co-opting those, if you like, or borrowing those, into a service delivery organization, which some PMOs can be, offering a service out to the rest of the organization. That can make a real difference. So it's not just about kind of full-time jobs, if you like. It's also about understanding the disciplines and understanding the methods and the frameworks and so on that are being used and being able to make your professional contribution. So some really great answers. And what a wonderful question from Jessica. Thank you so much, Jessica, for asking that. You've really got us all thinking about the scope and scale and the flexibility of different project management offices in different organizations, which is great. So Suchitra, let's move on if we can. We'll take our next question, please.
We have a live question from Diane. Do you have an example of a project cycle or project management standard operating procedures for a PMO?
Thank you. Start us off on this one, please.
Okay, I think there's a couple of standards that are out there. So there is a standard called P3 Best Management Practice, which talks about how to set up a PMO. There are also within the PMO, I think as Suchitra mentioned, is that we're seen to deliver services out to the delivery community and to the organisation. And so there is a really good book called PMO Services, which was written by Stuart Dixon, which provides a list of things, potential things that a PMO can do. Now, the interesting thing is that will provide some information on the services, but actually, each organization will need to write the detail behind how those services are delivered in that organization. And I think also, as Suchitra said, it isn't a case of kind of this is a list of all of the things a PMO will do, because each PMO will do the things that are most relevant to that particular organization. So each PMO you go into might have a completely different set of services that they provide. So the book is there as a reference, as a starting point, rather than as a kind of a Bible of things, of everything that you need to do.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Ashish, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Eileen, she did cover pretty much what I was trying to say, that any SOP of a PMO is only a framework, and it's the guiding light. But at the end of the day, it totally depends on the organization and the sector of the organization that they are playing and operating into. So every SOP, every standard process has to be customized, has to be adapted to your organization. And the organization may also have certain best practices that they would like to bring in play, right? Basis to the technology that they have in place for their specific industry and their operations. So there is no golden rule per se, right, for that this is what will apply as a box to every situation, but there's a framework that is available, and you need to adapt the framework for every situation and organization.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think there's a wealth of resources available online as well, okay, for you to be able to consider. I know that Eileen, I might ask you to comment in a moment, but you've been building an online community for some years specifically for this, so that people can, share the situation that they're in, get help, and input from colleagues around the world. What's the easiest way for somebody to be able to access that community, Eileen, and make that first step to tap into that resource?
So we've got a huge library at www.houseofpmo.com. So that will give access. So you will need to sign in. But there's free membership available, which will give you access to part of that library. And then obviously there's membership which will give you access to some of the more kind of structured papers. But that would be a good start to get some reference, and also to put you in touch with other people who are working in different sizes, different industry PMOs.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Suchitra, Jacob, then let's move on if we can, and we'll take our next question. We've got a very big link that's been sent to us, which is relating to one of the questions, which we'll come to in a little while. But in the meantime, let's move on.
We have a live question from Natalie. How do you add value as a PMO officer in an agile environment?
Paul, start us off on this, Agile and the PMO.
Well, even more value, because Agile is supposed to be even more structured, but it's structured differently. One of the things you can do is actually deal with the kind of standard approaches and how that fits with Agile and any clashes. So you can be the friend of the Agile team getting the job done, yet at the same time, making sure that structure and process is followed. Yeah, key role.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite interesting, isn't it? The perceived challenge sometimes between, and I suppose it depends on the scope of the PMO, really, because we've got that kind of situation where some people see it as kind of governance and governance and a little bit more governance, and so therefore, how do you blend all of the standard operating procedures, forms, etc., in a more agile environment. Eileen, what's your experience of that?
So I think one of the real challenges for a lot of organizations is they're not completely agile and they're not completely waterfall. So when we're starting to do the role of reporting, which is part of every kind of PMO role, when we're talking to senior management and the exec about how across the portfolio, how the work is doing, an important role we can play is being able to, almost that kind of point that you've brought up, Nick, is being able to kind of present progress regardless of how the delivery of those projects is being undertaken. So recognizing some consistent progress reporting against the portfolio.
Yeah, and I think it is something that colleagues genuinely, kind of stress about, how to bring these worlds together in a meaningful way. Now, if you're watching us online, and I can see that a huge number of you actually are, just right now, then please do comment in the chat. If you're working in a PMO in an agile environment, it would be absolutely fantastic, to hear from you. And also to see if you can put your question directly to the panel. So just type your question directly into the chat. We'll pick it up from there and we'll put it in front of people. And I can see we've got a huge audience actually today watching us live. So it's fantastic for you all to be joining us. Thank you so much, wherever in the world you are joining from. I can see already we've got people in Australia, in London, we've got people in Eastern Europe, we've got folks in Southeast Asia, in South Africa, in pretty much everywhere, actually. Nobody up in the middle of the night, though, in Canada or the US, as far as I can tell, at any rate, at this point. All right, very good. So thank you very much indeed, everybody. Get those questions in, and please do let us know if you're working in a PMO in an agile context. It would be brilliant to hear from you and your experience of that. All right, very good. Let's move on to the next question then, Suchitra, if we can.
Question from Ankit in Delhi. I work in a program office. Can I transition to an organizational PMO role?
Okay, Suchitra, how would you go about that? What advice would you give?
Well, first of all, it will depend on the role that you are playing in the program office and which role within the organizational PMO is tempting or is worth pursuing for you. But it will certainly be easier for anybody to transition from a program office to an organizational PMO because there are a lot of synergies between the two. But I would still advise that if you are in a program office, and if in case you have experiences of multiple programs and projects, that would be even better. But yes, certainly a better chance of transitioning, I would say.
Okay, thank you so much. Paul, then Eileen.
Yeah, look, I think that you're going to have a lot of skills which are going to be pretty useful in transferring across. So we could say it was an apprenticeship, but actually it could be just full on learning. So I think there's, depending on the role that you had in the program office, you would then, move across to the organizational PMO, bringing a lot of skills that you learned already. So I think, hang in there, learn those skills. When the opportunity comes, apply and move.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Paul. Good advice. Stick with it. Have the fortitude and see it through. Eileen, and then Rachel, please.
I think the big step up from working in a program office up into working at an organizational PMO office is an understanding of organization and the industry that you're in. So when you start working at enterprise level PMOs, what they're interested in is how the portfolio of projects and programs is going to help them support their strategy, how it's going to actually kind of impact their bottom line of the organization. So if you can only speak project and program language, there's going to be some miscommunication. You really need to be able to learn to speak some business language. So if you're looking to kind of move up into the program office, I would suggest into an enterprise, an organizational PMO role, it's worth just getting a little bit more knowledgeable about the organization and your industry, which will help you on your way.
Yeah, really good advice there. Absolutely spot on. Rachel, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, very similar to Eileen's actually. It's that scale of increasing scope, if you like. In a program, you've got some very, very valid transferable skills that come across and can support other program managers from, a PMO's delivery perspective. But you really have to change your kind of perspective about where the governance is going to, and you've got to have that oversight and be able to think about the programs that are in the portfolio and how that relates to the organization's strategy, and almost become that sort of conduit between the portfolio and the execs so that you get that two-way communication flowing. But I agree with Eileen, it's definitely about that scale up of scope. But in a program office, as Paul said, you've got some amazing skills to transfer. So don't let that deter you. Just maybe, try to understand more about the wider organisation so that you can position yourself in the right sort of scale, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely right. And, showing your interest and volunteering and working with people and, work shadowing and all of these kinds of things can give you a little bit of that insight, as you kind of go along, and also demonstrate that, you do have a genuine aptitude, for taking that next step in your career. And with a little bit of sponsorship, you may then get the experience to go alongside it. So all really good advice to help you build your career, which is exactly what this episode is all about. So very good. Thank you very much, everybody. Suchitra, if we can, let's move on. We'll take our next question, please.
Another live question from Diane. Is the PMO also responsible for monitoring and evaluation? And does the PMO influence the determination of projects to be implemented?
It's an interesting question, this, and I suppose we're going to have one of those "it depends" type answers from somebody. Ashish, start us off, okay? Then we're going to hear from Suchitra next. Okay, go ahead, Ashish.
Yeah, so I think so the first part of the question, monitoring and evaluation, definitely yes. I feel that I would kind of, but yeah, it depends on how the PMO is defined. What are the expectations of the PMO, for sure. But in general, if I see that if there is a PMO for an organization, then the one of the basic responsibilities that does fall on their plate is monitoring and evaluation. When I say monitoring, the evaluation is more of something that you present the output of the project, and the evaluation is done by another set of individuals. You may not necessarily evaluate, but you may assist in the evaluation process. I think that's how I would say monitoring and evaluation. And I would probably say it's monitoring and controlling the project. The evaluation piece is really not necessarily a part of the PMO role. The second part of the question, whether the PMO influences the determination of projects to be implemented, I don't feel that you would typically influence, but you would definitely help in the evaluation process. So again, kind of ties back to the first question, where I feel that you provide all the necessary inputs. It could be inputs from a business perspective. It could be data that you have collected while the due diligence was happening, putting all that information together so that people can make meaningful decisions out of it. But you don't really drive the influence. I think that's how I would put it.
Understand entirely. Thank you so much, Ashish. Suchitra, and then Paul.
Yeah, so I would agree quite a lot with what Ashish just said. And in terms of monitoring and evaluation, assurance, first of all, is very much a service that PMO provides. So that is covered. In terms of evaluation, the way I understand it is basically an evaluation of whether the project results are being delivered or not, and if we are doing it in the right manner. And most of the time, the clients, if you have external clients, would expect the evaluation to be independent. Because here you also do an evaluation of your processes and strategies, etc. So while the PMO might engage an independent consultant or an advisor, the evaluation itself will be independent, I believe. In terms of determination of projects, again, as Ashish rightly said, PMO is never involved in direct decision making. They always facilitate decisions. And in terms of project selections, there is project selection criteria, etc., that you define and then facilitate the decision making on behalf of your stakeholders. And that's where the PMO's involvement is. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Paul, your thoughts, please, and then Eileen.
Yeah, look, I think I'm probably going to cover what the Diane and the others, what some of the others have said, Diane, that while the PMO doesn't actually make the decision, it can facilitate it from the point of view that it actually can do the analysis and make some comments about, the validity of the project and, its benefits outlook and its likelihood of success. And this can help the governance structure to make a decision on it. So it can essentially filter, assess and analyse. The other thing it does is that it, it kicks projects off well, just making sure that they're well briefed, that there's good briefings going on, etc.
Thanks very much indeed, Paul. Eileen, final thoughts on this before we move on?
So I think a critical role that the PMO can do, which in order to do well, you need to have a level of credibility in the organization, is to do that, to play the role of the critical friend. So even though as a PMO, you do not have the authority to make decisions on which projects are going to be undertaken. One of the interesting roles we can do is play back. I often describe it as we hold up a mirror to the organization and say, so, we've got a prioritization matrix that we've built with what you've said is important on projects. When we've applied that, it comes up as projects 2, 3, and 7. You've decided to do projects 2, 5, and 9. These are the implications, that will happen. So you may fall short of resources. You're not optimizing benefits. So it goes beyond to make kind of just some of that evaluation, but it's actually a real kind of critical friend you can play, project level, program level, or even at board level.
Thank you so much. And I think it's a very, very important distinction to draw. If you're working in a service provider role within a PMO, then ultimately your findings are put forward. You may include, recommendations from time to time, but ultimately the decision taking is generally outside of that service provision, and that maintains your independence and also your relationship, quite frankly, with the project managers and the project teams and the program managers and their teams and so on that you're working with on a day-to-day basis, because it's vitally important that they see you as an enabler and not somehow or another confuse you with a police force. So it's a very, very important distinction to be able to draw and help your colleagues to deliver excellence in their day-to-day work. So really good question. So thank you so much for asking it, and also hugely active today in the chat. We've got people joining with service management backgrounds who are looking at PMOs as well and trying to think about how they all fit together. And we've got people who are working in towards their further studies in academia as well, which is great. So Suchitra, let's move on, please, if we can, and take our next question, please.
Another live question from Richard. As an MSc student in project management in the UK and willing to learn more about the PMO, how do I go about it?
Okay, Rachel, why don't you start us off on this one, then we'll hear from Suchitra.
Okay, so Richard, I don't know exactly which MSc you're doing, but I do know in the one that we have locally in one of the universities in Nottingham is they have a placement section of it. So I would try and liaise with your placement advisor and see if maybe you can get a placement in an organisation where there might be PMO opportunities. Excuse me. Then, I would look for potentially some networks. If you're a member of the APM or a student member of the Association of Project Management, as a PMO special interest group there, you could join in with that. And then I absolutely cannot answer this question without singing the praises of the House of PMO, which obviously Eileen is co-founder. It's an absolutely fantastic network. Even if you only take the free membership, you can still join in some of the events. You still get access to a lot of the information. But if you are able to, attend some of the webinars and start to network, you will just learn such a fantastic amount from the fantastic people in that community. So it would definitely be really good to be part of that.
Yeah, most definitely some brilliant advice there. And, do reach out to, if you're not in the UK, by the way, there are also project management organisations locally for you. And of course, now online, the communities are available pretty much to anybody, anywhere in the world as well. Great answer to start us off on this one. Thank you so much, Rachel. Suchitra, your thoughts, please.
So I think most of us who are now working on the PMOs, at some point in time, we started from some sort of technology field and business domain, etc. And PMOs always need domain skills and technical skills to be able to connect with the businesses better. So, and for you, in your case, it would be even better if you go into an organization which works on the STEM field, and that is where your education and qualification will hugely benefit the PMO.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Eileen, final thoughts before we move on?
And thanks to Rich about House of PMO, but there is actually some really other interesting groups out there as well. One that I do want to just raise, because they have a very regular podcast with lots of people around PMOs, is something called PMO Strategies, that's run by Laura Bernard. There's a great kind of regular podcast that I recommend is worth listening to.
I really enjoy, the kind of the auditory versions of all of these things, because you could just, when you're traveling, if you're getting on the bus, if you're, waiting at a train station or something like that, for those of you who are in the UK, there'll be a lot of us waiting at train stations this week. You can consume this kind of content in a very portable, very easy to understand, very accessible format. And of course, most podcasts appear across multiple podcasting platforms. So whichever one you happen to use, you can generally search for them and find them out. So thank you so much for that. Really good. Let's move on, please. And we'll take our next question.
Another live question from Jan Van Boon. What is the relationship between a project management office and a service management office?
Okay, now I think that Jan might have a view on this, because Jan is an expert in unified service management. So he's kind of reaching out, I think, to colleagues with a little bit of a smile on his face as well. So how would we describe then the relationship, or what would you look for in a relationship between, say, the PMO and a service management office in an enterprise organization? Any thoughts on that panel for synergies and a way in which you might look to collaborate and work together? I suppose both Jan are in a very similar business. So if you kind of drew a Venn diagram of the universal set of activities between the PMO and the service management office, both are about promoting excellence. Okay, both are about bringing that charter, if you like, of quality to life within an organization. Both are clearly delivering new ideas, innovation, and so on. So I think there's a huge amount of synergy. Eileen, in practice, is this an emerging area, or is it something that people are doing, but they might not be calling it that?
I just think it's really interesting in terms of some of the names that the PMO gets called. Everything from a kind of an agile delivery office, a change management office, and a service management office. So interesting, just from a clarification perspective, a service management office may actually be a PMO delivering the services out, or it may be particularly within an IT function where it looks after kind of the service management elements. And in which case, I think the link between them is the work that actually comes out. That needs to be undertaken as things come out the service office, because certain things will be done as kind of small changes, other things will be larger pieces of work, and therefore the delivery of those larger pieces of work to correct some of the issues that have been raised will actually be delivered as projects, and therefore the process for the setup of those projects and the delivery of those projects will come from your PMO.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and there is no, I'm afraid, all right, there is no universal way of naming anything in organizations, particularly when it comes to 3-letter acronyms, all right? Everybody uses the same kind of combinations of letters and phrases and so on. So it's always a good idea to actually ask whoever came up with the name, what do you really mean by that? Just sit down privately, just sort of explore it a little bit, just so that everybody really understands it. And of course, before you choose any 3-letter acronym, always imagine it spelled out in a sign on somebody's door, just to avoid all of the obvious challenges that might bring. Okay, very good. Let's move on then, if we can, and we'll take our next question, please. Thank you so much, Jan, for that one. Great question.
Another live question from Nadia. Would you be able to recommend the first steps to start a new PMO role and office in a company that has never established one yet?
Start us off. Where do you start when you're starting from scratch? Suchitra, please. Yeah.
Well, the first step would be to engage with different business heads and functional units to identify what their pain points are, what their challenges are in terms of project delivery, and find out if there is something that the PMO might be able to do in order to solve those challenges centrally, the common challenges, and then also figure out if there is really some interest in sponsoring the PMO within the organization, and then take it from there and build the business case.
Thank you so much, Eileen, and then Paul.
So I think there's 2 dimensions to this. One is, as Suchitra has talked about, is being clear about what the role of the PMO is actually, what you've been actually set up to do, because it could range from anything to providing visibility of all of the changes that are going through, to improving the chances of successful delivery, to actually supporting the skills and capability of the organization. So just be very clear about what it is that you can do, when you have to balance that off with the skills and capability who you've got available in order to do that work. So there's no point in saying, well, actually, we've set up the PMO to deliver, kind of to work strategically at the top of the organization level to drive the portfolio of change and understand how that's impacting delivery of the strategy, if what you're provided with are some very junior administration staff. Yes, so you have to match, you have to understand what the organization wants you to do, and then make sure that matches to the skills and availability and time you have available to do those work. And I think one of the biggest dangers that new PMOs have is they just try to do too much. They look at something like the service catalogue, they look at what other PMOs do and say, well, look, we could do all of these 50 things, rather than actually focusing on the 2 or 3 key things that are going to make a difference in their organisation.
Okay, thank you so much indeed. Really good advice to get that going. Paul, your thoughts?
I think Eileen's sort of stolen some of my thunder there. I think I recently established one. No, very good, actually. I recently established one in a organisation which was having a bumpy ride, and I've used what I call the opportunistic approach, which is called where is biggest pain, and let's fix that first. So that can just be, you can prioritize it and then reprioritize it. You can't fix everything at once, so you do have to choose.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think, getting the right level of sponsorship and organization is not always about approaching the most relevant, most senior person. It's also actually about getting that influence together in the middle of the organization, which is so important for adoption. It's a little point in having something inflicted upon people from above when it's so important that you actually get their day-to-day help, support, and engagement with you. So you need to work up and down the spine of the organization, to gather together, if you like-minded people who really do want to deliver better outcomes. Now, look, folks, we're heading rapidly up to the end of the show. So we're going to take one more question, I think, if we can fit it in. So, Suchitra, can we have our next question, please?
We have a question, again, another live one from Thomas Pongo. Which certified PMO training, P3O, MOP, or another, would you recommend to get the most comprehensive understanding of PMO capabilities?
Okay, Suchitra, start us off, please.
If you are looking to understand PMOs specifically, then P3O is certainly my recommendation, because that covers all different types of PMOs, whether it's a project PMO, program PMO, or an organizational PMO. But at the same time, I would also recommend that it should be taken with a solid conceptual understanding of project management and a basic understanding of portfolio management as well as program management. But yes, in terms of understanding PMOs, P3O is definitely one of them. I was the first one to get certified on P3O in my country when it was launched.
All right. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Eileen, and then Paul.
Fun fact.
I have to kind of claim a vested interest as I was lead author for both the P3O best management practice and the PMO competence framework. So I think the P3O manual is great if you want to understand the setup of a PMO and how to make that most effective for your organization. APMG, through APMG, the House of PMO have released some new qualifications, which is aimed as the individuals who work within the PMO. So we've got certifications for the certifications for the administrator, certifications for the manager, and in a couple of weeks we'll have finished one for the director as well. So you can do it from a PMO perspective, or you can do it from a role perspective within the PMO.
Excellent. Thank you so much indeed. And Paul, final thoughts on this?
Well, I think you need a variety of skills. And so, if you're the benefits person, managing benefits. If you're the business case person, better business cases. If you're doing program management, then, some program qualifications. I think the PMO needs people with depth in those different disciplines. So looking at a variety of them, along with the generic PMO, House of PMO, P3O, which are really good, is good to get as well.
All right, excellent. Very good. Thank you very much. We've just got time to fit one more in if we're super quick. Suchitra, last question of the day.
The last live question from Monica. How would you assess the PMO's accountability for business change management?
All right. So how do we manage accountability for PMOs? Ashish.
So, it depends on how the organizations are structured. Change management for some organizations can be a completely full-fledged role which sits outside of the PMO because of the complexity and the degree of change management that may be required. And the PMO role could be a facilitator for the change manager to follow the right kind of templates and the guidance and communication strategies that have already been defined. But in most situations, what I have seen in the industry is that typically change management is a different role, and the PMO can advise in terms of the templates and putting in a structure, but they may not necessarily be fully engaged in the process itself.
Perfect answer, I think there. And, Paul, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a variety of ways that PMO can do it. I mean, we've got the enterprise change manager, who's the person who has overall oversight of change initiatives, may not be actually doing them. They might be part of the PMO. So you could have a very active role within the PMO depending on what the organisation decided.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, panel. Some brilliant questions today, and thank you so much for the team who are online, and you've been entering your questions directly into Slido for us. So we're going to hear closing remarks from the panel. We'll start off with Suchitra first, and then we'll hear from Paul.
Well, it has been a pleasure, of course, talking to all of you and interacting with our live audiences. Some great quality questions. And if you go back and listen to the recording, just note how many times we used the word depends. And the moment you get used to using this word depend, you are just fit for a PMO role.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I love that one. Paul, and then Eileen.
Yeah, so look, if you want to be part of the PMO, they are up and growing. Effective ones add a lot of value. There's lots of different things you can do. So find that opportunity, grow your skill, get on with it.
Okay, thank you so much. Eileen, then Ashish.
So I think when I started out back in PMO several years ago now, it seemed to be a place where people went on the path to becoming a project manager or a program manager. And I think that's definitely changed now. I think people, and I think people on this call will attest to the fact that actually PMO can provide a very long career and covers from very junior roles to very senior roles in organizations. So you can be a PMO person as a career in its own right.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Ashish, and then Rachel.
Yeah, so I think great, insights from everybody on the panel and good questions. So my final thought would be that being part of a PMO is a journey, right? And like Eileen said, you've got different roles. You've got, you can still move up the ladder in the PMO itself. So it is not necessary that you join a PMO and then aspire to become a project manager or a program manager. So it's a journey. So keep learning, and there's a lot that you can do within the PMO organization itself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Rachel?
I think for me, one of the things that stood out with the questions is the enthusiasm everybody has about PMOs. And one of the changes that I've seen 23 years ago, I set up my first project program support office, which was huge. We call it an enterprise now. But it was very much about monitoring and writing reports. Whereas now, when I've come back to PMO sort of 3-4 years ago, it's very much more about delivery, and that's very heartening because that recognises a wide skill set that people can bring in and contribute to a PMO. There's a wealth of roles and skills needed in there now, and I would just say, to everyone out there that's trying to make the move, just go for it. And as Paul said earlier, don't give up, keep going.
Definitely great advice. Thank you so much. Suchitra Jacob, then, your thoughts on today's events, Fast and Furious?
Totally fast and furious, Nick. I think we've just been so busy on the social and getting in questions. It's been a very interactive live audience today. So thank you to the panelists also for your contribution.
Yeah, most definitely. We had a huge number of producers online putting in the questions and shaping the conversation and voting up all of those questions that you most wanted to answer. And that's really what we're here for. If you would like to connect with the panel, you may do so quite easily. It's quite straightforward. You can just find them all on APMG's International's website. And there's a little link there through to their LinkedIn profile, actually. So you can click on that and then connect with them that way on a professional basis. Please don't try to sell them anything. It's generally not a good idea. But yeah, by all means, reach out to them, connect with them, and tap into their expertise and their networks and so on. So thank you so much on behalf of our audience panel. Really was a great job today. So thank you and well done to everybody. Now, as I mentioned on our website, you can search for answers now to over 1,000 questions. We passed that milestone on Friday. So 1,000 and more questions are now on our website, and we will add today's questions and the answers to them, as well as a searchable, comprehensive free resource that connects you with more than 140 experts now from around the world. Don't forget, you can listen to the audio versions of all the Level Up shows on your preferred podcast platform. Just search for APMG International, Level Up Your Career. This coming Friday, on the 24th, we're going to be looking at how to become a data protection officer and help your organization deliver on its promises to customers and keeping data safe and secure. On the 27th, well, we're going to be looking into how to save money on your service management training and train everybody for less than perhaps you might have first thought. Subscribe to the show, and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. So thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time.